Hello everyone, and welcome to this CUBE conversation with Scott Stephenson, the CEO of Deepgram. And we're going to be talking, Scott, about funding event that recently happened and more details about where the company is going. My name is Christophe Bertrand, and I'm a principal analyst here. And Scott, it's great to have you back on the CUBE. We spoke with you a couple of times last year, and certainly you had a very successful event at reInvent, so I'm sure we'll be talking about partnerships as well. So let's start with the news, or the important funding news that we should cover today. You have been building the company for nearly a decade now, so 10 years seems like a short time, but it is actually a lifetime in many technologies and many industries. But Deepgram is at the heart of the voice market, which is absolutely critical in the AI space right now. So why was now the right moment to raise what is essentially a 130 million Series C round? And how does that round change what you can do and what you could not do before?
Yeah, in the last year, voice AI has gone mainstream. I think most people have seen that in the applications that they're using, both consumer, prosumer, or just food ordering, anything. There's new voice experiences that are becoming possible with the next generation of technology that is rolling out. And I think the world went from a pessimistic mindset to a much more optimistic mindset, and that happened in a very short period of time. A series of events happened in order to enable that, like ChatGPT and LLMs and great sounding TTS, in other words, voice generation, and then also real-time perception, like speech recognition and that type of thing, all coming together. And that's why it's happening all at once. And the raise is to support the core efforts that we're doing at Deepgram. So we build frontier models, we put them into real-time voice infrastructure that is then hosted across the world so that our partners can build on top of it. And yeah, the raise is to support that, to support scaling to over 100 languages supported, to scale worldwide. And we're very happy to be partnering with our investors on that.
Yeah, I mean, Deepgram has really established itself as the go-to platform for the voice experience. So you mentioned the core priorities here for this capital. Can you maybe double-click and tell us how you're going to be allocating the capital to, well, the acquisitions you've completed? Thinking of one here. You mentioned your core frontier models, and also, I believe, the build out of an actual global infrastructure backbone for what is the voice API platform that you propose. So can you double click on that?
Yeah, that's right. The funds will be used to scale the building of the models, of course, but also to expand into acquisitions that complement our platform. So, of one is one of those. This is now addressing Deepgram for restaurants, a vertical inside Deepgram now. So, if you're trying to get voice ordering into your application, or folks driving up and ordering, then you can now have a world-class voice experience. And so we're very happy to have the of one team join Deepgram. And yeah, with the global infrastructure build out now starts. Real-time AI is different than chat, like text AI. You need infrastructure all across the globe. You need to reduce the latency. The speed of light matters in voice communication, and so we focus on that. We are partnering with AWS and others in order to build the infrastructure that puts these models all around the globe, and then supporting over 100 languages.
Right, and what's interesting here is the fact that voice is becoming central to many applications, and I think you've been quoted as saying that in 2025 you said that I think voice AI has become, or went from skeptical to inevitable. So I would like to understand a little more about that. What has really changed that is convincing enterprises that this technology is finally ready? This is not you mentioned real-time voice. This is not just, you know, a computer talking to you. This is a real interaction. So what are the use cases in the real world that you see as successful? You mentioned food ordering. We've talked about that in the past, but what else do you see, and what has changed really for this adoption to be happening as we speak?
Yeah, customer service, business meetings, um, the medical field. These are all areas like really large verticals where voice AI is already adopted at scale and growing massively. Food ordering is another burgeoning vertical. But the way I would look at this is anywhere there is a text input, anywhere there's a button, anywhere there's a graphical user interface, there's an opportunity for there to be a voice interface. And so yeah, it really is kind of there's a few verticals that are already big and growing strongly, but there are thousands of applications that are also growing strongly. They just haven't formed into a large vertical yet. But it's all happening at once right now. I think 2026 that growth will just accelerate.
Yes, and let's double click on that because I mentioned that it's really a voice platform, and you've indicated the funding will help also build out the network and the platform itself. You have, I believe, something like 2,000 products that are actually leveraging your technology, and you're talking about maybe 1,300, 1,500 organizations. So tell us about this new initiative that you've just launched, which is your partnership program. I believe it's called the Powered by Deepgram initiative. So could you tell us more about that? You know, what are some of those concrete examples that can, again, illustrate how to build the technology in?
Yeah, so AWS is a partner, Cloudflare is a partner. Um, Companies like Sierra and Decagon are addressing the large customer service market and solving use cases there. They're powered by Deepgram. We have many use cases across several verticals, and we're really happy to have this powered by Deepgram initiative scaling up. Actually, you'll probably see some of this marketing and branding around because our customers and partners here are happy to have Deepgram inside and see this as a differentiator for them because our platform has a great trusted brand as strategic infrastructure. And so when you know that Deepgram is inside, you know that you can trust it. And so we're happy to partner with them.
Right. So let's double click on the real-time discussion that we had, because if I look at the product side, you know, products like, you know, Aura, Nova, Flux, you know, obviously I have also the voice agent API and Saga. They all squarely aim at being this real-time voice agent. So what is uniquely hard about real-time voice, if you could double click on that for us, because I think that's, again, something you suggested that's absolutely critical. You know, and so what is so critical that really changes the nature of the conversation, and that maybe a traditional chatbot style AI does not have, for example? And how are your models specifically addressing this real-time sort of challenge?
Yeah, the challenges are very different in when you're talking about real time. So real time, you're typically talking about a tenth of a second, two tenths of a second, three tenths of a second. You need to have some type of response. You need to have an active listening that's happening, adjustment and adaptation of the system in a very short period of time. If you have to wait a second, 2 seconds, 10 seconds for a response, it instantly breaks the experience. And you basically you want to hang up or you want to turn it off, right? But if it's an engaging, great sounding voice that understands what you're talking about and can just jump straight into helping you, then now you're leaning forward in your seat and you're saying, "Oh, I would like more of this. Can you? All right, let's go solve this problem and let's get to the bottom of this." So, but yeah, the constraints on that are large. It needs to happen in a very short period of time, and so this is where bigger is better mentality for some frontier model builders doesn't really fit in with real time. If you just go with the largest model that you possibly can, it's going to be slower than what you need in to respond with in real time. It won't be able to respond in 100 or 200 milliseconds. So you have to get the right size model with the right size intelligence, knowing about your domain, and this is a big differentiator for real time voice.
Right, and you mentioned the acquisition of one, which is really a dedicated Deepgram platform or solution for restaurants offering. So let's talk about that. So what problem were you're trying to solve here in the drive-through experience, and what type of problems did the pilots actually have with earlier experiments? Because I think I couldn't think of something more natural than a conversation. You're trying to get breakfast or lunch, you're talking to someone, you expect to have all of these intonations, people to take the order correctly, where if you have to wait 1 minute for an answer, that's not going to work. So can you maybe walk us through what the early pilots sort of suggested, and really how your models have really changed how the infrastructure is now responding and being built out?
Yeah, I think the agentic architecture is the big difference here. The way that ordering was attempted to be done in the past, and I mean, even as recent as just a few months ago, was more of what folks might call slot filling, or like it's a much more opinionated way to take the order. And just because there are so many options, people could ask so many different questions when they're taking orders, that you need a much more open-ended agentic experience that can on the fly in real time make decisions and give more information to the user, and then finally land the plane and seal the order. And it just wasn't all that possible until the last maybe 6 months to put all of that together in real time. And so the next level is going to come in these next few months as it's rolled out. We already see it being very successful, for instance, in Jack in the Box and others. The future is already here. It's just not homogeneously distributed yet, but that rollout is going to happen very quickly.
And this is all made possible because you have essentially filed many patents since your inception in 2016, I believe. So you've recently added several important U.S. patents around transformer-based ASR. So, and that's hardware efficiency, and I believe also representation learning. So how do these patents translate into practical advantages for customers in accuracy, in latency, or cost? And I expect the funding that you recently received will help build that technology out even further.
Yeah, that's right. The funding helps in us continuing to push the frontier. So funding our research initiatives, which then turn into products within 3 to 9 months, typically. And yeah, we've been at the frontier for a long time, filing patents all the way, back to 2016. And sometimes it takes a long time for these patents to get granted. Where we were publishing these patents in 2016, 2018, 2019, and they're just finally granted, in the last like year or two. But nevertheless, yeah, we've been out there in the frontier, pushing it. And one thing I think is a little misunderstood about Deepgram is we don't open source our models, and so it's not as obvious uh, what we're doing in order to achieve the different performances across accuracy, latency, and cost. But the proof is in the pudding. You just try it out, see the accuracy, latency, and cost benefits of using Deepgram, and then once users test that out, then they adopt it at scale and rely on Deepgram as their strategic real-time voice infrastructure. And that's where you see the powered by Deepgram partnerships coming in, where they have selected Deepgram and then they just move forward. And now they have one less big thing to worry about.
Right, and you are also opening a voice AI collaboration hub in San Francisco. Certainly, I will be personally very interested in visiting it because I'm local. But so, what do you hope will actually happen in that space day to day, and how does it fit in your broader goal of passing and what you've I think described as an audio tuning test at scale in 2026.
Yeah, the audio Turing test is essentially the standard Turing test is can you essentially type and text with a computer and tell it not be able to tell that it is a computer? So that's the general idea behind the test. And when I'm talking about an audio Turing test, where the idea here is that you can't tell that you're in real time talking to a machine. And right now, I think most people would say if they were talking to a voice AI agent, and they were, trying to discern if it's a human or not, the vast majority of the time, people would be able to tell, oh, this is, I'm talking to a machine. They could try to laugh or go down different avenues, and things would start to get a little it would start to show itself that it's not a real human on the other side. One of the big things that's in the way of passing the audio Turing test is just passing context throughout the entire conversation. And so this is a speech to speech way of thinking about the world where speech is coming in, speech is coming out, but the context is shared throughout every piece and component of the system that is generating the response. And then it's also holding those memories over time, so like if somebody called you before, or what they said earlier in the conversation, you can recall all of this in the conversation. And so this is the idea behind the audio Turing test. Just like what could a human do in a conversation? Let's make a computer able to do that same thing. And I think we'll be able to pass that by the end of 26 with the launches of our new architectures.
Right. So, in the context of sort of delineated use cases, you can also, with context, include not only language but whatever terminology is used in a specific space, product names, terms, the right sort of follow-up questions that need to happen, etc. So, I'm very curious to see how things evolve, and obviously, it's just the beginning. Thank you so much for joining us today and for the news about your new round of funding. Again, I think there's plenty that's going to be happening in this space. Clearly, congratulations again on that 130 million Series C. And in closing, Scott, do you have any sort of recommendations? If I'm a developer, should I go to the hub? Should I try to piece it together myself? Should I come to you? How do I engage to be able to add voice, natural voice, human voice almost, to my models?
Yeah, at our collaboration hub in San Francisco, you'll be able to come and see demos of new products that are coming out, give us product feedback. We'll have 4 deployed engineers there to help you get going. We'll be doing lunch and learns where you can, learn from our team, our researchers, our engineers, and figure out how to build what you're looking to build, and also learn from others who are out there doing it and successful at it. So there's a great community in downtown San Francisco where a bunch of voice builders are building together, and every day just coming out with new things. And so it's a really great way to keep up with things. So that's one way. Another way is to go to deepgram.com, just try things out. You can get free credit there and just get going. And then check out the Powered by Deepgram. What are people doing with Deepgram? So yeah, I would be delighted if folks went out and tried that out.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Scott. Congratulations again on the funding. And to our viewers, thank you very much for watching us today. My name is Christophe Bertrand, Principal Analyst at theCUBE Research.